ensure that to give a platform for children to participate, to celebrate the African children. But most of the time, as much as the African Union and the African Charter on the Rights and the Welfare of Child have said that Day of the African Child should be a process, but most of the time it is an event. Okay? We spend from April to June planning for one day, right? Okay? It's supposed to be a process. Okay? So one of the reasons we are having this meeting is to check, have we been doing the African Child the right way? Okay? Are we making it a process? Or is it just that one day and all our virtual will tick, done? Isn't it? We write on our reports, we commemorated Day of the African Child, or we supported government to commemorate Day of the African Child, isn't it? Okay? So, because of that, okay, we are very intentional in starting to implement the African Union guidelines on guidelines on child participation, and one of the biggest part of that guideline is Day of the African Child, and it specifically says each Day of the African should be a process. Okay, and the process starts from the day it stops to the next Day of the African Child. Okay, so for this particular reflection, you're going to be looking at Day of the African Child for the last 3 years. Okay, start the 2 COVID ones and this year. Okay, how have we been doing it? Have we been implementing a lot of proclamation, promises? All these have been said by government. Okay, children, on the other hand, have asked us to do things, isn't it? So you always have a child guest in every Day of the African Child, wherever you are commemorating it. Okay, at the community level, national, okay, regional, isn't it? We always have a child guest who has a speech and is asking us to do something. Okay? Most of us, anybody can remember what in 2020 the children asked? What was the theme for the Day of the African Child 2020? Anybody can remember the theme for 2020? Anyone? Nobody can remember? 2021? The theme for 2021. So if you can try to remember the theme, can you remember what the children said? You see why we needed to have this meeting? Yeah, because we don't want it to be just a talk shop. Okay? We need meaningful child participation. Okay? And someone challenged us with Kenya. Do it very well here. The rest will go. Okay? So the reflection, so I'll give you about Kenya. Day of the 2020 was Agenda 2040, an African Trip for Children, and the 2020 was Humanitarian Action. Okay? For 2020. Last year was Agenda 2040, and this year was? This year, guys. This year. Eliminating harmful cultural practices. Okay? So, in 2020, you know, the best thing I've attended all of the national events. The government said something, the children said something. In 2021, the government said something, the children said something. In 2022, the government said something twice, the children said something twice. Okay? Because of the launch and the main event. Okay? And all of us had our different at the national level. We had our own things, isn't it? So that's what we're going to do. We are going to reflect, okay, on those things. Have we been doing well? Okay, and come up with way forward. How can we improve the Day of the African Child to be just not a day, but a process? And then in the afternoon, we're going to have a very interesting conversation How many know that the Kenyan government reported to the African Committee of Experts in 2020? Anybody? Third and fourth reports? So in 2020, the government of Kenya reported. So the African Charter on the Rights and the Welfare of the Child requires governments to report every 3 years, okay, on what they have done in the implementation of children's rights, okay? So Kenya reported, Kenya had not reported in a while, so there's 3 reports. So, but in 2020 they reported, accumulated 3 reports in 2020, okay? And they reported on the how they have done. And after they reported, and then the CSOs report also. So government reports, CSO reports, okay? And then the government sent, this committee say, okay, we have seen what you have written, you know, like a report card. So you know, and then you have a report card, you say, okay, so it's an exam. And then you are sent for comments, okay? So the government sent a comment, so they are called a concluding observation, okay? So the government, the committee sent concluding observation to Kenyan government, okay, and told them, okay, very well done, good job, you have done an amazing job. However, you have not done 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? And you have not done well, so here. So we want you to do, okay? And part of CSOs, work of the CSOs, is to be able to monitor the implementation of those concluding observations, okay? One of the things that we are very intentional, as Mtoto News and in support from World Vision, is to be able to start monitoring the implementation of those concluding observations, okay? And send out a report and say, okay, this is how far Kenya has gone. And we want to be able to be doing this annually, okay? As we're celebrating the Day of the African Child, after we say, okay, we have done this, but after that we say, okay, Kenya has done this well, but here is our status on the concluding observation. This is how far Kenya has gone, okay? And there's so much data outside there. We have done, and when we look at them, there's some things they have done so far in 2 years' time, since 2020 to now. There's some things which have been done, there are things which have not been done, there are things which are prayer item, and we don't think they are going to be done anytime soon. So that is why we are having this meeting, and I want to welcome all of us, and I want to ask one of our kids to come and pray for us as we start.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Yeah, let's start this meeting with what I can understand. Thank you so much. Father Lord, we come before you, honoring and glorifying your name, Almighty Father. We thank you for such a beautiful and magnificent day, Almighty Father. As we start this meeting, Almighty Father, we ask you to be with us, and as we end it, to also be with us, Almighty Father. Let whatever we discuss here be able to be implemented, Almighty Father. Give us ideas, and Almighty Father, let us interact peacefully, Almighty Father, and guide us and protect us as always, Almighty Father. We come before you, honoring and glorifying your name, Almighty Father. For it is in Jesus' name we pray, believe, and trust in. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would request us, because of time, I don't want us to go saying what our names are, whatever. So what you have, we have a notebook in front of you. Okay? So just tear one page. Hold it like this. 1, 2. Like that 3 times. Right?
Want to check.
With NCCS volume, okay? And yes, NCCS volume, okay? So please,
1, 2, check.
Day of African Child 2020. Thank you.
1, 2, check.
Recently, with our stakeholders, we developed some guidelines, messages, and that information, those messages are already in all the county children's officers who are in all the 47 counties, and also about almost 290 sub-county where we have children officers present. And this information is already there at the ground. The children officers are using it together with our stakeholders to sensitize children on how to handle themselves during this time of COVID-19. As a department, we run statutory children institutions, which are about 30 of them. And these are rehabilitation schools, remand homes, children's remand homes, and rescue centers. This is where children who are in conflict with the law are being rehabilitated. And this day, really, we want to focus on their rights as children in those situations. As a department also, we run a toll-free line 116, which we call it a helpline. And this gives children a service to be able to report on what is happening to them. And this, we believe as a department, it has enabled our children to access justice, to be able to report, and then various interventions are handled from them. As a department also, we coordinate the Kenya Children Assembly. And this Kenya Children Assembly is all operational in all the 47 counties, being coordinated by our county children's coordinators in the counties. And we give opportunities for our children to be able to elect themselves as officials. We have governors. We have secretaries in those counties. And they plan their own activities as children. And most of the things that I just mentioned above, some of the information that as a department we are handling has come from those children assemblies being run by the children. They make those proposals, and we have tried to incorporate some of those interventions into the policy guidelines. And from there, we are now able to say, as a department, we are able to work together with all the stakeholders, being guided by National Council for Children's Services, to be able to access, to be able to have children access justice in a more organized and child-friendly manner. This year, the day is being commemorated under the theme access to a child-friendly justice system in Africa. This theme underscores the importance of a justice system that guarantees children dignified, expeditious, and fair processes of justice. As a country, we take cognizance of the fact that access to justice is a fundamental right and the foundation for the promotion of all other human rights. As such, the government has put in place measures to ensure that the justice system is as much as possible accessible and friendly to children. Kenya has been forefront in the domestication of international and regional instruments with their provisions given to effect in Article 2 of our Constitution. Kenya is a signatory to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child and the African Charter and the Welfare Rights of the Child, among other international and regional legal instruments, the rights and welfare of the child. Similarly, the Children's Act 2001 entrusts various bodies and actors with the responsibility of securing the various bodies and actors the same rights and provision of welfare and the correctional services. The Act also outlines in detail about children in need of care and protection, and those who are in contact with the law should be handled and sets the timeline for which this should be done. It's also worth to note that the government is in the process of developing a new statute for children that is not only fully aligned with the provisions of the Constitution, but also addresses emerging issues in the children's sector. There are other laws, regulations, policies, and guidelines that are also in place on the provisions of the Constitution and the Children Act in regards to child justice. They include the Penal Code, the Criminal Code, among others. The responsibility of dispensing children justice in Kenya is undertaken by various institutions that work independently. They include the Kenya Police Service, Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, the Judiciary, Prison Service, Professional and Africa Services, and the Department of Children Services. To ensure proper coordination of service delivery, including child justice to the Kenya, the government is going to establish national office. Was also established in 2011 to ensure coordination in the administration of justice and to oversee reforms in the justice system. We acknowledge the work of every institution in the child justice system, and especially during this time when we are battling COVID-19. We appreciate the innovative ideas that these institutions have adopted to ensure that they remain operational. Children justice, like other spheres of child welfare, requires cooperative efforts, and we recognize all the non-governmental agencies that have stepped in to boost the efforts of the government. We appreciate organizations that continue to support and popularize the toll-free child helpline 116 that provides children with a safe avenue for reporting rights violation. Legal practitioners who provide pro bono legal services to children in the justice system. Organizations that provide rescue and rehabilitation services, as well as those that offer psychosocial support. We realize that there are still many challenges that embed the full realization of children of the commemoration of this day, therefore, gives us yet another opportunity to consolidate efforts towards overcoming these challenges.
No child should be in the streets. No child should be in the streets. All children should be at home with their enjoying a family atmosphere. But we know there are many who are in the streets because they ran away from home, to run away from poverty, to go and seek a way of life in the streets. So these are our children, and we must always look at them the same way we look at our own children and wonder what is the best interest of these street children. So within the law, we consider them as children in need of care and protection because they need not to be in the streets. So what can be done? What can be done is to connect them back to their families and see what support can be given to their families so that they can be able to bring up their children. And that is why they are brought to court, so that the court can open care, we call it protection and care file for each of these street people when they are brought to court. It is not to punish them in any way, but to process a roadmap of how they can be rehabilitated, their needs can be assessed, and they can be taken care of. You have asked also a connected question of children who steal because they are angry, they are in the streets, and they are just stealing so that they can have something to eat. Or I can say as a judge, even if you're hungry, it's not a reason for you to steal. It's a reason that it is not a justification for stealing. So we will always treat stealing separate from the issue of poverty. Deal with the issue of stealing as a crime because it's not around in our law. And stealing, being hungry can never be a justification for stealing. But when the magistrate is dealing with that particular issue, there is something in law called mitigation, to look at the surrounding circumstances. What caused the child to go and steal? And when the magistrate realizes the child stole because they were hungry, then the magistrate will call the parent or the guardian and find out why the child went stealing. And then the problem will be sorted out by developing a roadmap, what we are calling diversion. There are many cases like this which we have handled. There's a child who had gone and broken into a neighbor's house and stolen the Meko cooker so that he could sell it and buy himself a phone. So when they went to the case conference between the police, the Nyumba Kumi, the children officer, and the investigating officer, the child was sorry about this, and they decided to pay the owner of the Meko and for him to do some community work for the owner of the Meko to say sorry. So what I'm saying is this is our society. All those who have challenges are part and parcel of our society. We need to find a lasting solution to the problem of poverty, the lasting solution of what is taking our children from home to the streets and address it. And that is the big work of the social workers, but not only the social workers, but also the parents and the community, the readers, and everybody together. Number two, I think Marion wanted to know if a child commits a crime, are they supposed to be handcuffed? And the answer is no, unless the child is resisting, to be properly processed. This I mean, if the child is trying to run away, if they are trying to run away, of course, the police will use whatever is available to restrain them from running away until they are processed. But the best interest of the child, which runs across the mind of every law enforcement officer, is that a child should not be handcuffed. Even if a child has committed an offense, they need to be talked to, they need to be dialogued, communicated in a way that you do not humiliate them, you do not take away their dignity, you affirm them as children and let them understand they have done an offense, they have committed a crime. But that does not mean them being subjected to punishment, or being beaten, or being handicapped, or being humiliated. Is to tell them they have committed an offense, which is unacceptable, and dialogue with them until they accept responsibility. And if they don't accept responsibility, the law has a way of bringing them to accept responsibility. That's why we have the Boston institutions where they are kept for a certain number of years so that they can be taken through training, counseling, until they come to understand what they did. Pius asked a question: how can teenage girls be protected from premarital sex? I think that answer falls to Pius to understand the girl does not make herself pregnant, does not involve with the sex alone. There is a boy or a man who is involved, and it is the men who should keep off from girls, knowing that it is a serious offense to engage in sex with a girl who is below the age of 18. It's a serious offense that is provided for under the Sexual Offences Act, and anybody engaging in sex with a girl who is less than 18 years knows that they will be going to prison for nothing less than 20 years. So when you see a teenage girl, you just leave her alone. All right, Pius? I think there we have communicated. And then Daniel wants to know, when a young offender's parent dies, how can the offender be facilitated to attend the burial of the parent? That is a question that I think the director will be able to answer, because that is social welfare. When young offenders are held in the institutions, is their responsibility to take care of their entire welfare. So if they have lost a parent, then it is the institution to facilitate that child to mourn the parent and to be facilitated maybe to attend the burial and give the parent a final rights a final farewell. That's a social welfare issue by the institution. Then Gideon asked about false witnesses. How can we deal with those mistakes when a child has been tried, convicted, and put in an institution by mistake? And when an appeal is done, the court finds that the witness, the evidence that put the child in behind the bars in the institution was false witness. That happens a lot of times. And I sit in an appeals court. We are always allowing appeals for one reason or the other. And there are many, many mistakes that happen. There could be somebody who gave false evidence. But if it is merely false evidence so that you get the child fixed, and it is documented the person gave false evidence, this person can be sued. The police can also take action against the false witness for giving false witness, swearing a false statement. And I think Madam Karimi will be able to elaborate on that. Because we are not supposed to bear false witness. We are not supposed to lie on oath. So if somebody did that, it's also another recognized offense. But there are other mistakes that happen in the trial that you really cannot pin either the magistrate or the prosecutor. They happen during the trial, and that's why we have the High Court correcting the mistakes and also the Court of Appeal correcting the mistakes, because we know everybody is a human being and they can make mistakes in the process of doing their work. That's why there is the appellate system.
The government is therefore committed, in recognition of the importance the government places protection of children, and child protection services are categorized as essential services by the government. As a ministry, we appreciate the partnership we have with the judiciary when it comes to children matters. And I wish to thank you, Honorable Lady Justice Madeka, and also celebrate the promotion of one of us, because we've been on this journey together. The Chief Justice, Mother Koome, is a product of this process. We celebrate her because she has championed children issues, and we believe with our elevation, with our promotion to that high office, children issues and matters of children will even be now handled at a very high level in the judiciary. She has given a commitment in our assumption of office speech that she will be able to champion children matters at even a higher level. And we are sure and confident, I don't have any doubt, the judiciary now will even be more closer to us, the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, as far as children matters are concerned. Even as I recognize her, a number of things keep emerging. And it's important, I want to appreciate what the Kibiegon said. He raised a very pertinent issue, 7 of them. Access to health. We have now a bill, Comprehensive Health Act 2017 and Beyond Zero campaign that addresses access to health. On registration of births, we have stepped up registration and recognized intersex of persons. On access to free primary education, in 2003, Free Primary Education Act 2013 was established. And the issues of children in our streets, we have ongoing initiative with the national government, Ngao, that is the provincial administration. We are starting with Nairobi and Mombasa, and the big cities. We did a census, we carried out census last year. We have 47,000 Kenyans in our streets, and we are working on bringing them home or reintegrating them with their society, or establishing rescue centers for these street families. On sanitary towels, and Kipyegon mentioned our sisters, his sisters who struggle and sometimes miss out in school. We are in collaboration with partners, including UNICEF, to ensure all school-going children access these sanitary towels. On the child pregnancy and those who are defiled and they cry for justice, we have now working with the judiciary to even establish virtual courts to deal with these issues, which protects the dignity and the face of our children. And the abuse at home, we are continuing with community sensitization and use of grassroots structures, advisory councils, and the provincial administration to ensure that what Kipyegon raised, which are pertinent, are addressed. And I want to thank him for bringing out these issues. Further, over the weekend, I saw on our mainstream media a 7-year-old child driving a big car, Prado. And I want to inform and warn all parents in this country to care and protect. We have a minimum driving age in this country. For one to access a driving license, you must have attained the age of majority, 18 years. To get a driving license, to get an ID, you must have attained the age of majority. And therefore, we have already, as government, taken action. The parent has been arrested, the car is in custody, and that parent will appear in court as an example to the rest of the parents who neglect their responsibility. We have to insist on very strict action on such parents. This amounts to abuse and misuse, abuse of children, allowing children, they can actually, they can cause serious accident, not just to themselves, but also to the rest of the public. On the other issue is we rescued in the last 1 week over 200 children from our neighboring country who had come and possibly for cheap labor or be involved in labor and child labor, and we are working with our neighboring country to return them back home, because we abhor any abuse or use of children in any kind of labor as a country. We have also witnessed so many cases. We have a very serious case in Athi River. A child who was abducted and killed and has been subject of investigation and media follow-up. And yesterday, 4 suspects appeared in court. Others are still being pursued. This is something that is this abduction of children is becoming a serious society breakdown. People are using children to settle scores. It's coming out, it is emerging. That child in the river and another one who was found dead, I think 2 days ago, were as a result of conflict between parents, and parents are targeting children. This is something we are taking seriously as a ministry, as a government, to deal with any form of child abuse or risks that exposing our children to all or any form of violence. Last year, we launched a survey on violence against children, and it brought out so many that report brought out so many issues that our children go through as far as violence is concerned. and to school, and we never lacked. And I call upon the other parents or our generation and the next generation to follow suit and ensure they equally care and protect their children from any abuse or violence. So, as I conclude, I wish to further strengthen coordination of our children matters. The government created gender and children desks in all police stations in the country and established a 24-hour toll-free helpline 116 for reporting violation of children's rights. The government continues to create awareness on children's rights and welfare to the citizens of this great nation to ensure that no child suffers any kind of discrimination. Among the milestones in this regard are the recognition and categorization of intersex children in the 2019 National Housing and Population Census report, an establishment of anti-human trafficking and online child protection unit at DCI to address issues of child trafficking and online child sexual and
On 16th June 1976, nearly 10,000 Black students from Soweto, South Africa, marched to the streets to protest the poor quality of their education. In the process, thousands of innocent children were shot by security forces. This day is also an opportunity to raise an awareness for the ongoing need to improve the education of children living across the African continent. Justice for children, like other spheres of child welfare, requires collaborative efforts, and we as African children appreciate all governmental and non-governmental efforts that have been taken to ensure maximum safety for all children across Africa. It is to our concern that racism and tribalism are still existing in between across Africa. These two vices are among the major causes of violence and discrimination in the continent. Lack of coexistence is unfortunately becoming a major problem all across the globe. This affects the children in many ways, especially mentally and socially, as it instills a lot of negativity in our innovative minds. We strongly urge the governments to teach and practice coexistence in schools and everywhere, among other virtues. This way, we shall reap ripe fruits. The present situation of COVID-19 has seriously affected dispensation to child justice, since the placement of children is a big challenge when a child is in conflict with the law. We children request stakeholders and courts to come up with a proper intervention to child-friendly justice instead of keeping them in police stations. Impoverished African children should be rest assured of their own security and protection immediately after a child has been molested, either physically or mentally. Proper measures should be kept in place. Children have every right to access lawyers, especially free of charge from the government, so as to provide justice, whatever the case. Last but not least, I'm encouraging my fellow children to keep safe and avoid getting in trouble. Let us not forget to revise hard now that we have a lot of free time at home during this pandemic. Rukaya Omar Muhammad, the chair of the National Children's Government, Mombasa County. Thank you.
24-hour toll-free helpline 116 for reporting violation of children's rights. The government continues to create awareness on children's rights and welfare to the citizens of this great nation, to ensure that no child suffers any kind of discrimination. So among the milestones in this regard are the recognition and categorization of intersex children
in the 2019 National Housing and Population Census and establishment of anti-human trafficking and online child protection unit this year to address issues of child trafficking and online child sexual.
It is devastating to say that even though the government have done more than enough in protecting us, in caring for us, and loving us, some parents in some homes still think that their children are a mistake, that their children are a curse, and therefore, instead of calling the places home, we call them hell. A place where we expect love, care, and warmth. It's where we find kicks, blows, slaps, denial of food, which might lead to malnutrition for the child. It is devastating to find a child in some hospitals dying in sickness, isolated because of the hospital bill hasn't been paid. Because the parent or guardian cannot afford to pay the bill, and therefore some doctors, unfortunately, isolate a child below even 10 years in a room, dying, no medication, no nothing, just there on the bed, dying of the sickness he or she has. Amidst all tragedies, I, Rukaya Omar Mohammed, the chair of the National Children's Assembly, on behalf of the Kenyan children, thank and appreciate the government's efforts to hear our voices as well as implement them, and as well we heartfully thank the non-governmental organizations for their support and care. May God the Almighty bless the work of your hands and give you the strength to continue protecting, caring, and loving the Kenyan and African children at large. In French, we say, "Le devoir, c'est pouvoir," which means that where there is a will, there is a way. We have found our will, and may God the Almighty create the way smoothly for us to achieve our 2040 aspirations. Rukaya Omar Mohammed, the National Chair, National Children's Assembly, a student in St. George's Secondary School, Nairobi.
We really say the promises for 2022. Do we? Okay.
Government level, before we go to this. At the government level, before we go to the society level, it is the responsibility of government to take care of all its citizens, but more particularly its children. That's why we have various articles in the Constitution that dedicate themselves to the protection of children. I am not giving a speech. I am here to say thank you very much for giving the judiciary the opportunity to talk to you, for giving the judiciary the opportunity to learn from you, to enable us to improve the way we protect your rights and the way we give you security of protection. The law is not deficient in the protection of children. It is the society, it is you and I, it is the government and the government agencies, myself included, that are deficient in the execution of their mandate and responsibilities in the protection of children. So I pray that today, because of what has happened here, because of the question, no parent is poor enough to neglect their child. There is help only if it is sought. Let us do the right thing. Let us obey the law, and let us stop destroying society by destroying our children. Let us simply do the right thing. And because doing the right thing seems to be difficult for a number of us, then let the remainder of us do the right thing and protect our children. And for you children, I want to say this. If society neglects you, if your parents neglect you, if those of us who are put in responsibility to protect you neglect our responsibility to protect you, then try to protect yourselves. You are not alone. There is a great number of people who care for children, and they are present in this gathering today, and they are watching us from wherever they may be. But if their protection is not enough, let us attempt to protect ourselves. And how do we do that? Let us avoid situations that could get us into a compromised situation. If while at school, you see behavior from your elders, the teachers and workers in the school, that suggests that they are up to no good, report. Because in that environment, there is one person willing to listen to you. Do not put yourselves in situations that might compromise your rights and your security. But should you find yourself in that situation, because I said, if nobody else wants to take care of children, then you take care of yourselves, at least make the first step, then please report. Break the silence. Do not keep quiet. Let those who threaten to harm you, those who threaten to kill you because an offense has been committed and they want to cover it, let them execute the threat. Find a way of escaping to a place where you can report, and report it to everybody except the person who is telling you to conceal the offense. Thank you for giving the judiciary sufficient challenges to improve the way that we render service to children in particular and to justice seekers in general. From where I stand, I promise that when I get back, I shall report what the events of today to the Chief Justice, and the Chief Justice and I, together with everybody who works in the justice chain, and because she's chair of the National Council on the Administration of Justice, shall continue to improve the manner in which we allow access to justice by children and the protection of our children. Because a society without children is dead. Allow me to conclude by attempting an address to what that child just told us. She said a fellow child was raped to death. I don't think it's rape, I think it's defilement, but raped to death. And what is she asking us? Not to jail that person. She's saying, kill that person. Now, if that does not make you cry, if that doesn't make you wake up to the protection of the child, I submit that nothing will. We all know that life is sacred. But here is a young person saying, kill that person. Now, the offense for defilement is not the death penalty. Maybe the child is saying, make it the death penalty. Maybe the child does not see any other way to sufficiently punish such a person. Maybe they think that the punishment that is appropriate in a case such as that is death. And so, society, are we listening? What ails us? What are we suffering from that we must inflict pain and destruction on children? And is doing the right thing not enough to protect our children? If each one of us did the right thing, because the right thing cannot be defiling a child. If each one of us ensured that a child went to school when they were supposed to go to school, if each one of us ensured that we did not subject our children to child labor, if each one of us ensured that we provided an environment that stopped a child from committing an offense, wouldn't society be the better for it? And so I say, there's enough law to protect the rights of children. The law is not deficient. The law is not the culprit. The culprit is you and I, and can we do something about it? I wish you well, all the children in the house, for today and for going forward. On behalf of the judiciary of Kenya, I undertake that we are going to improve the way we deal with you, to protect your rights, and to punish those that offend you. Thank you very much, and God bless the children of Kenya. God bless the children of the world. God bless parents to take their responsibilities more seriously, and God bless the Republic of Kenya. Thank you very much.
It is yet another year to take stock of the status of our collective responsibility to the Kenyan child. Each year, we are reminded of the shortcomings that are in existence in protecting our children and ensuring that they get the highest quality and most resourceful environment for their development. It is my pleasure to share this day with you as stakeholders in the child protection sector. It gives me a lot of hope when we all come together to analyze the steps in place to improve the services that are being provided for the Kenyan child as parents, as the community, and as stakeholders. That is sisi wote ambao tuko hapa, wazazi, community na stakeholders wenzetu pamoja na mtoto. I acknowledge that today is about the children And it was an enlightening experience listening to over 1,000 children at the town hall meeting with the Deputy Chief Justice on Monday. It is clear that children need to hear from us on the steps we have taken to cater for their needs as the government. It was enriching to share a platform with children asking bold questions to find out what we have done as the government to eliminate harmful cultural practices, as is the theme this year. I want to say I was present, and they did not just ask questions about harmful cultural practices. Waliuliza maswali kuhusu masomo, kuhusu shida ya njaa wanapoenda shule, kuhusu security yao mliwasikia hapo wanapoenda shule. Haya maswali yote waliuliza, wakiuliza serikali mnafanya nini kuhakikisha kwamba tuko na security hata wakati tunaenda shule, tuko na chakula tunapoenda shule ili tusema tunasikia masomo, tuko na afya wakati tunaenda shule. So there were not just questions about harmful cultural practices, lakini pia kuhusu mambo ambayo yanawahusu. Having a culture is gold and must be protected and embraced, especially in our African culture. I was sharing with the Her Excellency, the First Lady, nikimwambia kwamba huwa na admire sana wale wasichana wa kutoka South Africa wakicheza na zile nyimbo za kwao. Lakini leo nimepata pride kubwa sana, ile kujivunia kuona kwamba culture yetu ya Kimaa bado iko. Wale wasichana wamekuja hapa na vijana wamevalia hizi nguo zetu za kitamaduni. Ni mambo ambayo tunafaa kujivunia na kuhakikisha kwamba hatupotezi hayo mambo, kwa maana kuna yale mazuri ambayo tunafaa kusherekea. It is how we identify our tribes, our lineage, and commune by embracing practices and activities that have been passed on through generations. Culture is a beautiful thing. It is expressed in our habits, language, our food, our ceremonies, even initiation into adulthood, our marriages, even our funerals, as we relate with one another. However, there are some aspects of our culture that we need to let go to protect our children and each other. It is in appreciation of this that the Judicature Act under Section 3 states that customary laws are recognized as laws in Kenya if they are not repugnant to justice and morality. Kwa hivyo sheria yetu pamoja na katiba inakubali kwamba tuna mila zetu, tuna culture zetu, lakini tuweze kuzipractice tu wakati hazileti dhuluma katika jamii. This is evidence that the Kenyan laws appreciate our cultures but also protect us from any of the practices we may have adopted from our familial ties that do not serve justice and morality. The term harmful cultural practices covers forms of violence or ritual discrimination. Kwamba kuna mambo ya kimila ambayo yanalete violence ama vita ama ile kudhulumu, sema tu dhulma katika jamii, na pia discrimination au kuwatenga watu wengine katika jamii. Maana kuna culture ambazo zinaleta kumtenga mtu kwa sababu hajafanya jambo fulani, na hayo ni mambo ambayo hayakubaliki kwa sababu they are violations of human rights and fundamental freedoms. Examples of harmful cultural practices that are prevalent in our country include FGM, child marriage, child labor, corporal punishment, child beating, preference of the boy child, and infanticide. Harmful practices such as child marriage and female genital mutilation, among others, have lasting negative physical, psychosocial, and financial impact on children, violating their fundamental rights. Despite progress in the reduction of harmful practices, children across the world and in sub-Saharan Africa continue to be at risk of child marriage and FGM. FGM is known to be practiced among certain communities in 33 countries in Africa. Kenya accounts for 15% of these statistics. Kwa hivyo bado tuna kazi. The harm done through FGM is far-reaching to adulthood. Girls are the most affected by this harmful cultural practice. I would like to emphasize that initiation into adulthood should not be aimed at causing irreversible damage of anybody's body with far-reaching consequences on their sexual and reproductive health. Long-term consequences include complications during childbirth, anemia, formation of cysts, damage to the urethra, increased risk of HIV, and psychological effects, among others. The judiciary is committed to interpreting the law to root out these practices. For example, this commitment was demonstrated in March 2021 when the High Court of Kenya upheld the constitutionality of the prohibition of the Female Genital Mutilation Act 2011, which ensures that girls are not at risk of their human rights violation. Unakumbuka na mmoja wetu alienda kotini kusema kwamba hiyo sheria inakiuka katiba, sheria ambayo inasema tusiwe na FGM. Lakini mahakama kuu ya Kenya ikasema kwamba hiyo sheria iko katika Kenya kuhakikisha kwamba haki za msichana yule ambaye anaweza kufanyiwa FGM hazitadhulumiwa. I therefore urge all Kenyans to show similar commitment to rooting out FGM from our society by being at the forefront of saying no to FGM in each of our spheres of influence, including at the family level. Let us join hands to protect our children. Ladies and gentlemen, our Constitution recognizes a child as any person below the age of 18. The Sexual Offences Act has put in place punitive measures for any person who is found guilty of engaging in any sexual act with a child. It also recognizes sexual harassment as a crime and outlaws any sexual abuse material any person may be found circulating or possessing. The Marriage Act has also outlawed any marriage with a child. As we speak, there are over 1,800 girls and over 310 boys who are complainants in defilement cases. Wakati huu tunapoongea, kuna kesi ambazo ni 1,800 za wasichana na 310 za wavulana ambao zimeletwa kotini wakisema kwamba wamedhulumiwa kimapenzi. This is a clear testament to the fact that despite being outlawed, defilement of both boys and girls is still happening in our country. It is imperative that we find out why it is rampant, despite having stringent laws to protect our children. We must ask ourselves, what is our role in dealing with this issue? What can the government do better? What can the community do better? We cannot let one more child or boy or girl go through this trauma. It is immoral, it is inhuman, it is an urgent concern for each and every person in this country. It is therefore time for the government to undertake an assessment of implementation of the Sexual Offences Act and the impact that this law has had in deterring predators. Let us all find out what can be done better to protect our children and to ward off the predators once and for all. Ladies and gentlemen, the government, specifically the child protection sector, has been made aware of child beading as a harmful touch of practice, mostly in Turkana County. Disguised as beads, this practice takes away the innocence of the girls who undergo the practice. The beads are beautiful and should be embraced, but if the significance of the beautiful beads remain to be an ugly act of defilement, this should be addressed. The practice encourages defilement of children who should be in school, working on their future and pursuing their dreams. I therefore call upon the county government of Turkana to take a lead in addressing the concerns of relating to this practice and protect the children. In Kenya, the government recognizes that it is important to impart skills for children to be able to grow their expertise. However, child labor is unacceptable. We had the children. The International Labour Organization explains that child labor is work that deprives children of their childhood, their potential, their dignity, and that is harmful to their physical and mental development. Child labor is mentally, physically, and morally dangerous and harmful to children and interferes with their schooling. Excessively long and heavy work can be described as child labor. It is important for adults to understand that children can pick up chores at home or gain skill in any other sector, but they should always be keen to ensure that they do not harm the child in a bid to allocate responsibilities. Tumesikia mambo ya sand harvesting, that if children are involved in that, it is child labor because they live school and go to do work that they shouldn't be doing. One of the emerging harmful practices that has not been spoken about is gangsterism. Children in the urban setting, especially in slums, which are marred with poverty, are being recruited into gangs by being manipulated by adults who have lost their way. Children are vulnerable persons. Children are malleable. They can be molded the right or the wrong way. I call on all of us to be vigilant about this emerging practice and embrace measures at the family and community level, including the Nyumba Kumi, that deter the recruitment of children into gangs. I laud and celebrate the work done by Makadara law courts, dubbed Silencing the Guns, an exercise that saw children who are gang leaders interact on a one-on-one with the police, the judiciary, and the office of the DPP, and give up their guns to stop crime. One of the issues that was highlighted from this exercise was the need to facilitate the children to empower their social, economic welfare to avoid recidivism. It emerged that most of them commit these crimes as a desperate measure to get out of poverty. I therefore urge government to enhance programs aimed at empowering the youth, such as the Kenya Youth Employment Program and the Ways of Fund, so, which will be important in empowering children and their families. Ladies and gentlemen, watoto, this year our theme is eliminating harmful social and cultural practices affecting children, our collective responsibilities. So let us all hold hands to achieve this. Let us all recognize that all our children need to be protected from harm. It is not in any way a benefit to the community when children are violated. This should not be the intention of community and culture. It is important to ensure that all the agencies, all of them in the child sector, work together with emphasis on community programs to members of the community on how to ensure that our cultures are not infringing on the rights of the child. It is important to ensure that our children are protected from the violence perpetrated by us adults claiming that it is our culture. Although there is a Swahili saying that mwachavila ni mtumwa, we should not use this to enhance cultural practices and beliefs that harm the children. Let us embrace zero tolerance on these practices in every part of Kenya, whether in the urban or marginalized areas. Children should speak of a culture that made them feel safe. Children should speak of a culture that made them feel loved and cared for. Children should speak of a culture that made them feel free. Culture should not take away the safety net they should have within our communities where it is embraced.
Talk about issues affecting our lives. As you may all be aware, this day reminds us of the children in South Africa that were killed as they protested against the poor quality of education they were receiving then. To our leaders, this day calls for fresh commitment towards protecting our. Indeed, it is time for us, our parents and leaders, to act against and speak against harmful practices and violence against children, like early marriages, female genital mutilation. As we all know, ending FGM and child marriage is a target firmly rooted in the Vision 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Other harmful practices include child labor, teenage pregnancies, sand harvesting, cattle herding, moralism, just to mention but a few. The gains to come from ending this harmful practice are more than an individual, more than a family, more than a community. It is a collective responsibility to protect all children in Kenya because they are the future of our country. When these practices are eliminated, we as children will grow up to be responsible and take over from our parents in future. We recognize and appreciate the efforts by the government, the UN bodies such as UNICEF, NGOs, and ITISA, and all leaders for all the efforts in eradicating these practices. It is our humble request as Kenyan children to have more boarding primary schools in Kajiado County and especially our school, Elangatawas Primary School. Schools act as a place of safety for children who are at risk of their rights being abused. Like our fellow children who protested in 1976, we want to urge our fellow children not to keep quiet about the wrong things happening in our communities, including our homes sometimes. We need to speak out and talk to our leaders until our issues are addressed. We can call 116, a toll-free line to air our concerns when we are in distress. The Spot It, Stop It campaign conservation should go on. Unlike what happened to our friends in 1976, today we are happy that our leaders are here to listen to us. We are hopeful that our issues will not only be listened to, but also accepted upon. Thank you. God bless children of Kenya. God bless you all.
Down in 2020, 2021, and 2022. Yeah? So now as we go think about that and come back for the next session, we'll be going through children. I will be going kutoka hivi on your, just walk straight. There's like a balcony. We'll be taking our team there. Sasa? Yes? All right. Thank you so much. So we can go for a break. Again, come back at 15 minutes. 10 for